That's the first one, other religions. The second one he identifies is actually, I think, equally popular. It's the idea of evil and suffering. Now, this one actually, though a lot of people haven't associated to that, in 1978, Rabbi Harold Kushner wrote a book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, that coined and actually articulated this in a way. There's I think about 4 million copies of this book that have been sold since it was initially published. But this idea of evil suffering is a defeater that comes from the notion that there can't be a God with how bad things are really going. This is the way Keller articulates it. He said, Christianity teaches the existence of an all-powerful, all-good and loving God. But how can that belief be reconciled with the horrors that occur daily? If there is a God, he must be either all-powerful but not good enough to want an end to evil and suffering. Or he's all good but not powerful enough to bring an end to evil and suffering. Either way, the God of the Bible couldn't exist. For many people, this is not only an intellectual conundrum, but also an intensely personal problem. Their own personal lives are marred by tragedy, abuse, and injustice. Now, this is actually a very sophisticated theological conundrum or problem, because it's saying, how could he be all good, infinitely good, and infinitely powerful at the same time, and have evil in the world? You see, what Kushner came to the conclusion was basically saying, he either is good and doesn't have the power to stop it, or he has the power to stop it and he's not good enough to know what to stop. Very logical, plausible difficulty that makes Christianity seem like it can't be true. Now, Keller's brief response is simply this. If God himself has suffered, our suffering isn't senseless. You see, if the Bible depicts for us that God himself actually engaged suffering, then suffering can't be for nothing. Now, he goes on and makes actually two very strategic points in this. The first one's this. If you have a God great and transcendent enough to be mad at because he hasn't stopped evil and suffering in the world, then you have to, at the very same moment, have a God great and transcendent enough to have good reasons for allowing it to continue that you can't know. In other words, you can't have it both ways. If you can say that I can actually be mad that there's evil in the world, you have to believe something's out there that's bigger than you. And if whatever that is out there is bigger than you, you have to admit that it's possible that God knows some things that you don't know. He understands why things are continuing, and he just doesn't bring them to an immediate end, and he just hasn't let you in on it. And so that's his first part of the answer. The second part is this one. Though we don't know the reasons why he allows it to continue, he can't be indifferent or uncaring, because the Christian God, unlike the gods of all the other religions, takes our misery and suffering so seriously that he is willing to get involved with it himself. On the cross, Jesus suffered with us. And see, not only does Keller push you to the fact that if God suffered, there's no way you can conclude that our suffering is meaningless, but he actually brings it to the point that he makes it so personal that he's able to say he can't be indifferent to it. Christianity as a system of truth tells you that God writes your tears in a book. He keeps them in a bottle. There's no way he's indifferent to them. And so to either minimize suffering or to exclude God from it is to deny what Christianity is saying about it. Very, very significant treatment or address of that issue of evil and suffering.